The converted man here. A while back, it was an epic keyboard warrior exchange between me, some theists, and an atheist. And I was like, I'm done because I gotta review this book that I've got, and I don't want to talk about any of this anymore. I don't know what to do. Anyways, then I decided to go ahead and solve reality once and for all, so I'll never have to have this discussion ever again. Yeah, that should do it. So, all right, here we've got this idea. There's a novel line of evidence from grounding and functionality. I'm trying to figure out what the heck evidence that would be. And I'm saying it's not a scientific paper. Wouldn't evidence place it in the realm of science rather than philosophical discourse? It's almost like there's no evidence at all. More to the point, he seems to be suggesting that he found the underpinning of reality. Wow! Anyways, it's not published in a scientific peer review. Why is that? It's almost like there isn't anything to this at all. But science isn't the only way to know truth. Yeah, shut up! Yes, it is. Yeah, that's right. I don't care anymore. Yeah, all right. So where to begin? How do we begin with our digging of what epistemology is? Well, we know what it is, kind of. Like, I hope you know what it is. But, like, what's the what is the with the capital T? Like, how do we do it? Like, how do all humans do this? How should we do this? What will we do to do this? How do it work? So it's the theory of knowledge, especially in regards to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. Okay, yeah. I mean, that seems pretty straightforward. So it's like, how we figure out what stuff is stuff. Yeah, that shouldn't be that hard. All right. But then there's also words like we got over here, we got metaphysics, and that word was brought up. So I gotta look at what that word is. And it's like, oh good. Here we go. It's a branch of philosophy that deals with the first principle of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. But aren't those like last two also in science? Like, isn't time and space real things? Well, identity is also real, but then why are they what is what? Okay, fine, whatever. Maybe Google will just tell me what reality is, and then we can just go from there. No, it's just a bunch of pictures. That doesn't. This is no. That doesn't help. This doesn't help me. Uh, yeah. So what does it mean? How is reality? How do I know what reality is? Like, okay, I've talked about this idea before. I'm like, well, numbers aren't like they're real, but like they're not physical, but they're not physical either because they're in your brain. And your brain is physical, right? So that means they are physical, but they're also not physical, like musical notes. Like, those are representations of an idea, but they're not really there. You can hold one, but also you can't, and that's confusing. I've also said, like, letters are an example of things that aren't really things. They're things, there they are, but they're not really there. But they are there because there they are, but they're not like here in my hand. Like, I can't really hold them. So that's great. So now what? Because I'm trying to solve a simple problem. Like, it's like, okay, look, lobsters exist. Let's start there. Because of course I'm going to start there. Why wouldn't I start there? I mean, it just seems, appropriate for me, being me with the lobster thing, to just be like, lobsters. Let's start there. So if we can agree that lobsters exist, then at least we're on the same page. And if we can't agree with that, then we're having a problem. Most of these are like lobsters getting eaten, which I don't like. That's upsetting to me. I find that personally offensive. Don't kill the lobster. Love the lobster. Lobster is your friend. Lobster, lobster, lobster to the end. All right. Anyways, okay. So lobsters are real and they exist, whether you and I exist. Like they exist as they're like in reality. Like you know, that's pretty simple. And then you go, wait a minute. How do we know that? Then we get into this dang problem here, right? You go, okay, look, your eyes can fail you, and your ears can fail you, your memory can fail you, you can hallucinate and dream. So how do you know that you're actually seeing anything at all or hearing anything? Like your senses can be fooled. So maybe lobsters don't really exist. Maybe you're all that really exists, or at least you're the only thing that you can be sure of. And I'm like, no, you've taken it too far. I'm not going there. That's stupid. I just want to get past that point. I just want to assert it that lobsters exist and move on. But they're like, no, I don't want to. And I'm like, no, stop. Lobsters exist. Let's move on. But we can't. Because when we're debating this thing that people have debated for, like, I don't know, a while, that's called God. And that's important to a lot of people. The concept of God. I mean, it's something that people, take kind of seriously. I mean, some don't, but others do, and I don't know. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But that's what I'm debating most of the time. But also I'm debating logic, or at least I'm trying to like get people to learn logic. So what am I debating God, or am I trying to get people to use, what am I doing? Like what am I doing exactly? Was God a stoner? What? That sounds like a good article. Wait, no, focus on thing. All right. Okay, so all of these pictures of God, like here we got this, white guy with, gray hair. Why wouldn't God be black? Like, I don't know. I don't think he'd be any race. And that's Trump. That's okay. Well, and then you've got the the light and the people. They're like praying and stuff. And here's a lion in the clouds, and this is a god. That's a god. Here's a god. And he wears a god. Old Mick God had a god. E-god, oh. Here's a god over here. What's he look like now? Here's a god, there's a god, there's a god, here's a god, here's a god. Okay, anyways. sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I hope so. I think she'd be a pretty Asian lady, if anything. Yeah, why not? God's a beautiful Asian lady. That's what God is, right? Okay, well, anyway, so I was trying to like, that's how this all got started, was this guy made this, very long, and I mean, it's long, I mean, it's not, it's so long of a paper talking about God and reality and whatever. And I'm like, well, why isn't that in science? Because if it's real, couldn't we investigate it in science? And like, well, not everything has to be done by science. Like, well, okay, well, what do you got then? What system are you going to use? Well, you've got logic, but logic's also kind of part of science, isn't it? And they're like, well, but it's the philosophy of science. The philosophy is the system. But there's no system of the system. There's no philosophy of philosophy. So what's your system going to be? Because it's going to have to be science or logic. I mean, it's like, no, because there's things that you can't prove. And I'm like what? Like the fact that we're speaking words. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like that, the words aren't physical. Like, so how you prove that a word is real? This was part of the discussion that I had, was like, how do you prove? Because I was like, look, I need evidence. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, do you need evidence that you need evidence? Yeah. What? Yes. I don't. What? Yes. Huh? Yes. Like when people ask me, am I skeptical being skeptical? Like, I'm like, well, yeah, you can be, I guess. but you don't like infinitely run that, because they're trying to be like, oh, you're inconsistent because if you're a hypocrite, that somehow matters. Like, no. Being a hypocrite's not a logical fallacy. You see, you can be a hypocrite. Look, and I'm like, all right, fine. You want to play this? Fine. Everything except for this sentence needs to be proven by science. All right, now what? Now it's your turn. Now you go. You moved your piece. I moved mine. Now what are you gonna do? You want to be all, you know. But I love some of these comments. Let's get that back on the screen, because some of them are just really great, really intellectually deep and satisfying to read through. So that's what we're going to do. Well, I'm going to do it. I mean, for you. I guess you could do it on your own. But yeah, I'm still complaining about this. I complained about it before, but I'm not going to not complain about it again. Anyways. So, he said, where was it? Metaphysics, bro. Have you heard of it? Metaphysics is philosophy, not science. Science does, however, contribute to metaphysical models. Just please stop and read some basic philosophy of science. Yeah, metaphysics, bro. That's real deep there, dude. Anyway, so it's not the 1950s anymore. Verification is dead, dude. Yeah, like for sure, radical, man. Yeah. Actually put some effort into trying to understand philosophical literature for once, dude. Yeah. So I'm like, evidence, bro, you got any? No, they don't. It was like, well, what do you mean by evidence? I'm like, IQ points, bro, you got any? I'm like, yeah, I've got over 9,900, IQ points, but you got to have faith to know it's there. So there's, anyways, God, all you atheists are the same. Y'all scream at the top of your lungs demanding evidence in the form of scientific papers without actually defending the philosophical presuppositions that are presupposed by science. And this is where I think everything goes wrong, right here. There are no prepositions that are required to begin science. None. Well, maybe that's not true. But I'm going to say that it's true for now, and then explain why it isn't. All right, so here's the thing. Like, you go out, you look around, you look at this fucking tree, right? Oh, God. No. Don't go full tree. Don't go full tree. That's a bad idea. All right, but you look at a thing, and you go, okay, here's what this is. Like, the word of what it is, right? And you go, okay, this is a rock. Let's just say you found a rock. And you go, okay, it's a rock. And you go, well, why is it a rock? Because that's what we called it. Okay? That's just what we called it. How do I prove it's a rock? It's a rock. That's why I go, look, lobsters exist. Let's just agree on that. But it's like we can't even get there because we're like, well, metaphysics. We got to do that. Like, how do we, what all right, so are there pre-assumptions made that are pre-assumed by science? I don't know. Reality is real. I guess that's pre-assumed. I guess so. I guess you kind of have to assume that reality is really there to even study in the first place. Because if you don't do that, you can't get anywhere. And you go, okay, let's just do that. Why not? Let's just see how the damn thing works. So we set up like a test of some sort, and we test this thing. All right. But can we test all these things? Can we verify all the things? I love that sophisticated atheists reject this sort of foolishness. So that's a nice poesy over the well, because obviously, the unsophisticated atheist doesn't. And that of course makes you wrong if you're not sophisticated. Obviously, yeah. Anyways, and Electric Media is the atheist that was in here, that was also like confused, and what was it that was said that really got me? So they're all atheist equivalent of young Earth creationists. Got all morons like Matt Dillahunty, Apologia, Rationality Rules, Michael Schumer, and GMS brainwashing them into a sort of unsophisticated neo-positivism. Every one of them being morons who don't know a thing about good philosophy. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, why, I know lots of bad philosophy, I guess, but what's good philosophy? Like, how do you even determine what's good philosophy? What's your system for that? Oh, that needs a system. Ugh. Anyways, let's see, where was it? I keep going back to this. If you had evidence, you could publish it as a scientific paper, but you don't. That's the problem. Of course, we know that they're going to ask me what I mean by evidence. Anyways, okay, so, oh, right. Arguments are evidence. Somebody said this at some point. I just want to make sure that was said. And because I want to point it out. Let's see, where is it? Bad arguments, that's me. Where is it? R. F. No? Okay. I know that it was said. Let's see. I don't know. Well, maybe it wasn't said, but it was certainly implied. Okay. And I take umbrage with this because I've said many times arguments aren't evidence. They're not. And the proof of that, there's so many proofs of that, it's not even funny. If an argument was evidence, you could go to the bank and go, okay, look, premise one, either this is a bank, or it's not a bank, and and because it's not a bank, you don't owe me $1 million. It is a bank. Premise two, it's a bank. Conclusion, then you must owe me $1 million. And they'll be like, what? I'm like, look, I just presented you an evidence about you owing me $1 million, bank. So where's my million? And then it's like, that doesn't work. They don't accept that as evidence that you have $1 million for some reason. And the other problem with the idea that arguments are evidence is you have an argument for and against the same thing. So that means you have evidence for and evidence against the same thing? How does that work? It's like, we have DNA evidence that you were at the scene, and we have DNA evidence that you weren't at the scene. Well, I guess you could if the two are time separated, right? But no. We have a camera that shows you at the scene, right? And we have a camera that shows you not at the scene at the same time. Like, do you have a twin? No. Is this the multiverse? No. Do you have a lookalike? No, it's still you. We've got the DNA, and this is impossible. Basically, we found an impossible thing here. We have impossible evidence of you in two places at once. That wouldn't work, right? But in an argument, you could have that, because its arguments are like synthetic propositions that are ideas of the mind. They're concepts that we hold. They're not the same as everything else. And philosophical argument is evidence. No, it isn't. The premise might be pointing to or talking about evidence, but the premise itself also isn't evidence. Saying a thing isn't evidence. Well, in court, but okay, that's in court maybe. Like, you could say something presented, like, here's evidence. I wasn't there. I wasn't there the time the person died. That's my evidence, Your Honor. Okay, thanks, everybody. I guess we can go home. The other guy said I was there. Well, I wasn't. So there you go. I mean, anyways. So they keep going, back and forth, and nobody's really giving any sort of coherent anything to me, and I don't know. So I asked this guy, because I got tired of him saying that evidence arguments are evidence. If that's true, then is there evidence for God? And he said he's not answering that, as he's an atheist. Let a theist on the thread that answer if they care to. Wait a minute. The answer is no. That's a simple answer. There isn't evidence. But you're trying, I guess what he's doing is because he's confounded that evidence could be an argument, that then there is a evidence for God, but also there's evidence that there isn't a God because there's arguments against God. So there's both evidence for and against the same thing. And I guess it's just which evidence you like better. Or I guess you use logic, but then the problem is how do we know that the logic is logical or not logical? We have to look at reality again. So we're back to epistemology, where we started from. Then this guy goes off into, do you think it's possible that a necessary being exists? What the hell are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, no. So he said no to my question of if there's evidence of God, or I don't even know what I asked anymore. Do you think it's possible a necessary being exists? And then, this is what he said. To answer my question, theism and naturalism are both metaphysical models that cannot be empirically verified or proven. Really, I thought that the fact that things exist, which I guess is naturalism, is the proof that things exist. That the thing is the thing that proves the thing. Here's the thing. That's the proof that the thing is the thing that I'm holding. Here's the thing that's proof of here's the freaking lobster. That's proof of a lobster. Isn't that? No, it's not proof because the thing isn't the thing always. And let's look. Here's rock. Let's get rock up there. All right, we got some pictures of rock. Okay. Oh God, we got some pictures of the rock too. God, I hate internet. Okay. There. Just rock. Okay, great. That's a rock. Here's a rock. Everywhere's a rock. That rock. God damn it. There's the rock again. The rock with a fish as its head. What the fuck? What? What am I looking at? Oh, stop getting distracted. Rock. Right. What was I talking about? Rocks. Okay. Just clip art, river. I don't know. Stone. Yeah. Stone. There we go. Can't go wrong with stone. No weird images can pop up if I just type in stone. Oh, man. I know weird images could pop up, but whatever. Okay. So, what's the evidence that the rock is a rock? Well, there it is. It's a fucking rock. All right. So I ranted so hard that reality broke, and now there's two of me, I guess. And I don't even know which one's real anymore. When logic is consistent with reality, it's called science. Yeah, I know, it's weird how that works, right? But we're scientism. We're doing scientism when we ask for, I don't know, proof of things using science. And they'll say things like what was it that they said? Data is something to models are based on reasoning. And then, this is great. I gotta show this because this is just great. Everybody can facepalm on this. All right, this is what this brilliant mind child that thinks that we're all dumb philosophers said. Okay, all right. Evolution didn't have empirical verification until very recently, as we never witnessed any significant speciation events. Whatever. This changed with this experiment. There are many other theories, models out there that have little in way of empirical evidence. Yeah, no, that's not true. Like, okay, I don't know how recently it was. Like, I don't know what he means. Anyways. Anyway, so there's two competing metaphysical models that are theism and naturalism. Well, I don't know, whatever. To be considered valid, they have to make predictions and should meet the criterion of falsifiability. We treat them as we would any other scientific theory. But you don't, because they're not in science. They're being published in philosophy. This guy's paper that I'm complaining about, Dr. Joshua whatever, is published his thing in philosophy, not in science. And he's saying things like, here's how reality works. He's got this whole thing about reality and how it works, and that's not science, apparently. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Why not? Whatever. Because it's philosophy. Because that can be that. So I don't know, but I'm doing something wrong. I must be doing something wrong. It's got to be me. I've been told I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. That's possible. But then here's the thing. Like, how do I know I'm wrong? That's the question I keep asking. Like, what's the system? And when you listen to or read these philosophical types that like get really deep into philosophy, like the only philosophy I care about is informal logic, right? I don't care about the other philosophies, and when you get into the deep end, oops, that's the wrong paper I wanted to that's not the thing I wanted to share. When you get into the deep end, you get it's like these big words, and it's like you're reading them and you're like, what are you even talking about? I don't even understand what you said. What are you talking about? So here we go. Grounding and the existence of God. Now this reads like it might be, like a peer-reviewed paper because you've got the abstract, right? So the abstract tells you what you're going to read. So he seeks to assess the extent to which theism, the claim there's a God. By the way, that's not okay. Now, he capitalized theism? So maybe by doing that, he set theism apart somehow, because not all theism is always theism about God, I guess. I mean, okay, religion isn't. Okay, so never mind. My brain wanted to go somewhere else with that. Anyways, whatever. All right. Can provide a true fundamental explanation for the instantiation of the grounding relation that connects the various entities within the later structure of reality. So okay. So those were words that I read. And I know that they're words. I understand some of them in this article. Okay, I got that. I'm not stupid. Pretty dumb, but I'm not stupid. I seek to assess. That means to look at, right? That's like a big word for look at, right? The extent or how well to which belief in God, I guess you could just say that whatever. But anyways, the idea that there's a God can prove or provide a true fundamental explanation. Well, I mean, wouldn't it be implied that it's true? I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, for the instantaneous, what is this word? I don't know what this word means. I've come across a word I don't know what it means. Let's Google it. Countable and uncountable, the production of an instance, example, or specific application of a general classification. Oh my God. So it's how many things there are about it, of the grounding relation, whatever. Anyways, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's all word salad. And you're like, well, you're just saying that because you're dumb, deconverted man. Well, that might be true. It might be dumb, but it's still word salad. Now, to be fair, if I pulled out a scientific publication, there's going to be words there I don't understand, and I know that. I'm not pretending like I know a lot of stuff. I'm a simple guy. But when I look at a scientific paper, like it actually makes sense after a while. But when I look at this thing, the further I go, the less it makes any sense. Like he describes this here. He's like, okay, mental facts obtained because of neurological facts. What did he say there? Just tell me what he said. Put in the comment section what he means by this. Like, just tell me, like, in simple terms, because I'm dumb, okay? I keep going back and forth with being dumb and not dumb. What does this mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't understand what you mean. So, the mind is a product of neurology, I guess. Like, chemistry, H2O molecules are grounded by H and O atoms. So that's what he means by grounded. It's like the thing that they're made of is that thing, I guess. But then the H is also grounded by the thing that it's made of, right? So then that thing is grounded by something else, see? So I know where this is going, right? We all know where it's going, because, I mean, he said where it was going. He told us where it was going. It's going to try to explain what God is and how it works. And I'm like, who are you to know what God is? Like, how it works? I mean, isn't that, I don't know, a bit presumptuous on your part? Presumptuous? Is that even a word? Anyway, so here's this lovely chart here. All right, so we've got absolute fundamental category that's ungrounded. Then you've got that pointing to or related to physics. And you've got this up arrow that's determined or dependent by chemistry, biology, psychology, economics, which are all non-fundamental categories, but they're all grounded. So, here's my question again. You're talking about real stuff that's in the real world, right? So why couldn't you use science on this? That's what I'm asking. I'm not saying that he has to, mind you. What I'm trying to ask is, why isn't he doing this? Why isn't this a peer-reviewed scientific paper? We're talking about real things here. Here you're talking about quarks, chemical structure. I don't know what the hell an H-brain is or an H-mind is. Goods and services, whatever. Those are entities. I don't know, whatever he's talking about. I'm sure he explains it, but I don't care. Layered structure of reality. Okay? That's what this illustration is the structure of reality. Now, don't correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't reality something that science tries to study? But then they say, the philosopher guys say, no, you can't use science to study some aspects of reality. So because of that, you can't use science on everything. Well, that's not the question I asked. The thing I said was, why isn't this being done in science? You're talking about real stuff, right? You're not. Is he talking about abstract objects of the mind, or what? I don't know anymore. Okay, because I'll grant that numbers, letters, musical notes, words are what I think it's called. I don't even know what I think anymore. Objects of the mind. They're not in the same category as other things. Now, I've been working on this idea for a long, long time of trying to make it simple. And I'm not there yet. And I guess I have to take a lot of classes to get there, because there's a lot I don't know. And it seems that I have to speak the language of philosophy, even though I don't want to do it, but I have to do it to prove my point. So it's like, I guess I'll do that, and it will be a thing that I do. All right. So, let's see. And tier 2. So this is kind of my idea loosely. Okay. Like I said, I'm still working on this idea. I've been working on it for a while. But we're going to have 2 tiers. And in tier 1 are the lobsters. Let me just draw a lobster here. It's not going to look good, but whatever. It's just live with it. So, here we go. All right. Oh my God, this is a really bad lobster. I've really screwed up on this. All right, that's good enough. And then, people you know. And why not? Let's put a fucking tree in there because, gotta have a tree. It's not a good argument unless it's about trees or something. All right. That's good enough. All right. Let's get rid of that little bit of the tree. Yeah. Okay. So that's tier one. Is things that exist that are really real for real, and like you could even have like the world itself, right? That's gonna be the world. It's a really bad world, but whatever. It's if you're an artist and you want to support my work by sending in your contributions, let me know and we'll do that. Okay, so there. That's better. Now that kind of looks like a world. Yeah, that's not bad. Let's make a moon. Not to scale, not to but whatever. Okay, hey, that worked. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, I like it. All right, yeah, all right. Okay, that kind of looks like a bowling ball if I do that. That's too many dots. There. All right, okay. So those are real. The Earth existed before I did, and will exist after I'm gone, and so the world doesn't need me. That's really hard to believe, because I personally think that the world needs me desperately, and now that I'm here, it won't be able to exist without me. So it's gonna have to keep me around forever because I'm awesome, and just so I'm the necessary being. I'm God. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so that's me. No, sorry. I went too far. Okay, my point is that these things all exist, and they all exist for real, like real, like right. We don't need a brain for there to be an Earth, right? The Earth is there no matter what. But then you have tier two stuff, and that's going to be things like numbers, uh, musical notes, and what was the other thing I said? Colors, I guess. Colors. What was the other example I always give? My brain decided not to tell me. Numbers, musical letters. That's it. Letters. I couldn't remember letters. All right. So all those are tier two. Now, why bother? Well, what I'm trying to do is say, okay, this is one sort of thing that things are, and this is a different thing that things are. Okay? And by doing this, I hope to create a category, because this is like what I would call objects of the mind. Because maybe somebody else might call it something different, but it's going to be what I call it, right? Objects of mind, right? So instead of saying objects of the mind, because that phrase might be used by somebody else, I'm just going to say it's in the tier two category. Okay. Just so that, like, I'm not borrowing an idea from somewhere else and I'm not going to make it confusing for people later. So, and I'm hoping that this is on there. Yes, it is. Okay. So let's just get rid of the word objects of the mind. Okay. So basically, what I want to do is say where God belongs. Does God belong here? Or does God belong here? It belongs in one of these two categories. And what I have to do using logic and some sort of argumentation is make this into a true disjunctive syllogism. It's either this or it's this, and there's no in between. There's no middle ground. And that's going to be very difficult to do. I don't even know if it's going to be possible to do. But this is something I'm serious about trying to figure out, and reading books and taking classes, whatever I got to do to get there, because this is going to be what I want to do, and you're along with the ride with me as I try to sort this out, and whatever. There's been much said about this by many other people, and I'm just another guy trying to do it. I'm just trying to figure out what what makes this a tier 1, what makes this a tier 2 is going to be defined by sentences that I have to construct to describe what tier 2 is and what tier 1 is. And doing that is going to be difficult because what about history? Is history here or is history here? Or is it kind of in both places? And if it's in both places, then that's not good. I only want it to be in one of the two places. So I have to really be careful with how I describe how this idea works. But the ultimate goal of doing any of this is to then say, this is where God is. For the theist, or for the person, I don't even want to use the word theist probably, but I don't know. For the person that believes in God, I guess that's why we say theist, but God belongs in this category for most, maybe not all, but I would dare say for most people that believe in God, this is where God belongs, not necessarily here. Because if God's just here, then God is as real as musical notes are. That means that God is reliant upon a mind to think about. So tier 2 is all things that the mind is necessary for. So if there was no mind, if there was no brain, if there were no humans, then none of the things in tier 2 would be there. They wouldn't be. There wouldn't be numbers, there wouldn't be musical notes, there wouldn't be letters. Now, that's not to say that math wouldn't work. Math would still work, but nobody be around to notice that it worked. Okay. So math would probably be in tier 2 as well. But all the things in tier 1, they share something similar with each other. They're independent of each other. They don't need me to exist. Okay? So the earth, the tree, the lobster, the moon, they don't need me to think about them. Numbers, musical notes, letters, they need you to think about them. And for now, we're just going to assume that humans are the only intelligent enough species in the universe to do this kind of thinking. That's just, so that we don't have to include aliens and, maybe dolphins understand some of this or whatever. We're just going to, just to make it easier, we're just going to talk about the human mind and say that's it, just for the sake of making the argument, making it clear what we're talking about. So if there was no human mind, then everything in tier 2 would vanish. It wouldn't be anymore. There wouldn't be numbers. There wouldn't be musical notes. Would there still be a God? The person that believes in God, I think, would say yes, because God for them is here. For me, as a skeptic, I would say no. God belongs in tier 2, and that's it. It doesn't belong in tier 1. It is an object of the mind, and that's all it ever has been, and perhaps all it will ever be. Or if we became God, that the sort of God that we are wouldn't be the sort of God that we've talked about for a long, long time in human history. So at that point, you're not even really, because it's we might call ourselves God, but we wouldn't really be God. It's like if I name my lobster God, that's not God, right? Like nobody's gonna say, "Oh, that's God." Like you just named your lobster God. That's not what God is. So how do you know what God is? Is another question I ask. I ask that all. I ask the person that believes in God, how do you know what God is? And maybe they have an argument for it. Or maybe, but then I go, okay, but yes, but where did you get the concepts of God from? because the argument couldn't have been it, because the word came first, the idea came first, then the argument came. The only answer, the only honest answer, well, I don't want to say it like that, but I guess that's a way to say it, is a holy book or tradition that God is X. That comes from your belief. God is X, Y, and Z. Why? Because that's what I think it is. It's love. It's the thing that made the universe. It's the thing that makes everything else possible. It's the uncaused cause. It's the first cause. It's the thing that doesn't need a cause. It's the thing that without the thing we wouldn't have anything at all. And I go, well, how do you know that? The answer seems to be every time I've asked and got is that it's just asserted. It just is that way. It's by fiat. It's because I demanded that this is how it is. A lot of times it comes from a holy book. And sometimes it comes from arguments that you go, but yeah, how did you get the ideas in the argument? And then you get back to either the holy book or just that they're declaring this is what God is because that's what I said it is. And so, and some words are like that. Some concepts are like that. Some concepts are just that's what they are. You know, like you can't have a married bachelor. You can't have a married bachelor. Why? Because the things that's not what they are. If you're married, you can't be a bachelor, and if you're a bachelor, you can't be married. But that's just a concept. The concept of marriage and the concept of bachelor are just concepts in the mind of a human. And if there wasn't a human, then there wouldn't be the concept of bachelor. There wouldn't be the concept of marriage. And maybe, just maybe, there wouldn't be God. But maybe there would be. But then wouldn't we find it here in tier one where we could do science on it? And the philosophers say no, because you can't use science on tier two. Or can you? If logic is part of science, and by logic, I'm talking about informal logic and formal logic. I use informal logic. That's my main thing. And forget about writing out informal. Screw it. If logic is part of science, then the answer is yes, because you can use logic to do what's called a truth table on a lot of these concepts. You could write out a truth table for the number one. You could write out a truth table for all the numbers. You could do the same for letters as well. You could do the same for musical notes. You could use logic just to prove, I think, almost all the concepts that there are. But then there's this question of, well, there are things that are the way they are because they can't be anything else. So that's a weird kind of notion. It's like, well, why is one? Because it is. It's just that's what it is. It's a tautology. It can't be anything but that. The law of identity. You know, A is A. That's just the way it is. So, but is A tier 2? Yes, because the ideas of logic are in tier 2. Without brains, there wouldn't be any logic, but the universe would still have the fact, whatever the facts are, the same. Math would still work. It's just nobody's there to know that math works. Nobody's there to know that logic works. Nobody's there to talk about it or to engage in it. And so I think there comes this disconnect of where when I'm trying to explain this to some people, they go, well, but logic is this other category that's over here, so therefore it's not here. And it's like, well, yeah, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is, to find out if this is actually true, I still need to do something. So what do I do to find out that that's true? Do I use logic to solve logic? Well, maybe I can, and maybe that's valid, but maybe it's not. Then what do? Do I use science on it, or is there another methodology that I'm unaware of that can resolve these sort of questions and issues that I seem to have, or that humanity seems to have, for that matter? So when I consider what God is or isn't, it is based upon what the person asserting it has said to me. I take their assertion and say, okay, that's what you mean by this concept. Is that real? Like in here, not over here. What I mean when I say real, I mean this area. I mean tier 1. Because tier 2, yes, it's real. 2 is real, but like, I need it. That's why I need another term for it. If you get what I'm saying. All right. If you put God on this playing his song. Yes, if a tree falls in the forest, there's no one to hear it. Doesn't make a sound. No, because sound is a product of receiver with an ear. Well, yeah, if you define sound in that way, then yeah, that it depends on how you define sound, right? And then we're into a whole another problem of what the word means. Oh man. So you have to also define your words and say, when I say this word, this is what I mean by that word. But then those other words also have to be defined. And that's an endless job too, isn't it? Because your word's always going to be defined by more words. So then what? And I don't know. Reality. Can't spell anything. All right, I'm going to sell that for $1 million. Okay. So this is just part 1. The underpinning of all of that. And I go, lobsters exist. That's gonna, and I'm serious. That's gonna be the underpinning. That's gonna be the start. Is lobsters exist? I've used it as a joke many, many times. Premise 1: lobsters exist as a joke, but I'm serious this time. That's it. You start there, and of course, by that I actually mean reality is real. And where do you go from there? If you can't test it, you can't measure it, you can't see it, verify it, and it only is something that can be talked about in philosophy. Whether or not you're using logic may be a second question to ask, but that seems to me then that you are in tier 2, because all the other stuff is tier 1 and can be explored via science. Everything that's a thing can be examined in some way. And the only things that cannot be examined in this way are the tier 2 categories. They can be examined. It's just how we examine them is different, maybe, than what we think of when we think of the word science. And maybe that too needs a deeper, broader dive into it. Like somebody was saying, the philosophy of science, to study and read and that. Hey, getting smarter about all that thing is good. But I don't want to go off the deep end into where there's this weird territory of what looked to me when I was reading through that discussion I was talking about earlier, that there's no way to resolve it, that there's naturalism and then there's theism and there's no way to solve it, and there's just competing theories and that's it. No, that can't be the answer. That I cannot accept that. And also I want to say, well, I'm not, as far as naturalism goes, I don't like that terminology because it's an assertion that the only thing that there is nature. I don't want to say that because I don't know what the only thing there is. I know there's stuff, and I know that reality is there as much as you can know anything. But other than that, it's all up for grabs. And that's what and I say we, humans, have been doing since we could do it, is grasping with epistemology and trying to decide, is this idea an actual thing or not? And when I don't, there's people that think numbers are real instead of just like, and I mean, what, I don't understand that. I just don't. It's like, what do you mean numbers are real? Like, they're in your mind, they're real in that way, but they're not like a physical object. And and that's like this whole other thing. What about the letter A? Is that real? Well, yeah, but it's in tier 2, not in tier 1. You could find a thing that's in the shape of an A in tier 1, but it wouldn't be made out of A. So Plato had his forms, and he had basically this, that the shadow cast by A is what we're talking about, and that there's a real A out there outside of the cave, and we can't leave the cave for whatever reason. And I go, nope, no, no. Aristotle beat Plato, and Aristotle gave us logic, so I like Aristotle better. But why did Aristotle beat Plato? I don't know. How do I prove that? I don't know. Because I'm not a philosopher. I'm not into that stuff. I have to get into it just so I can disprove it, or, well, not disprove it, but get a grasp on this discussion that we have and try to say, here's where we part ways. And I think that the core is that the person asserts that there's a thing called, say, supernatural. And you go, how do you know that that's a thing? And they go, well, the word is a thing. I agree with that. The idea is there. The concept is there. But is it there in reality, or is it just a concept? And that's it. They think it's a thing that's in reality. But you go, but you can't prove it using any methodology like you could on a physical being. And they go, well, because that's supernatural isn't physical. That sounds to me like you're describing tier 2 then. That this is only a reality in the mind. That's what supernatural is. It's a realm that can't be tested, can't be weighed, can't be verified. Maybe it can be argued for, but, and maybe it's sound within that sense of, I can construct a truth table and I can show how it's true in this case, but I can't show you it. I can't hold out the thing and say, that's what I'm talking about, because it's not physical. It's like, well, if it's not physical, then that's an object of the mind. Although I would still say, ultimately, it is physical because the mind is physical. But we abstract out these things. So, yeah, there might be a third class of things rather than just 2. That's possible. A exists actually, B exists conceptually, C exists theoretically, and God's a third class or a fourth class or some other, I don't know. So that's the beginning of this insane thought journey that I'm going on with you. I said this in my community thingy that I sometimes post in. And I don't know how you guys see that sometimes, because not everybody sees it. But sometimes people see it. So here's that. Let me share that screen. Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. What is this? Yeah, okay, sure. Okay. Whatever. Is that it? Is it working? There it is. So see, it's like this is the community page. Just let's like deconverted man / community. So that's it's there that right. And then I post stuff. So I said, this is one of the things I said I was going to do, which is outline the correct epistemology to use for all of reality and figure out the answer to everything. It's a short video, right? Can't be an hour long. Oh, fuck. I've been at this for an hour. Goodbye, everybody. Lobsters exist. Ah!